Get it?
All right. Well, thanks to all the presenters and Todd for hosting this track. It's been a good morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're at. I'm excited to announce the IT service costing session and introduce Michael Sire and John Grover from the University of Maine system. So I do want to turn it over to them so we can get the most out of their session. Take it away.
Hey there, and I see I'm on the wrong slide. Start that over again. Are you seeing our title slide and good audio?
Yes.
Sounds great.
Great. So welcome to a lightning show and tell of IT service costing, the University of Maine system model. This is going to be fast with a lot of information. I'm Michael Sear, Director of Architecture and Service Management for the University of Maine System IT area. Joining me is John Grover, our esteemed Director of Enterprise Applications, retired, and Special Projects person. John developed the costing tool that we'll be talking about, as well as a lot of the model. We plan on having time for questions after the presentation, but if we don't get to yours, please feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are in our EDUCAUSE profiles. So we're here to give you a quick overview of IT service costing, what it is, why the University of Maine system uses it, how costs flow through the model, how we prepare for and complete the annual service costing activity, and the process's outcomes and possible future. So what is service costing? In accounting, costing is simply the process of assigning cost to an element of a business. Just an aside, when I got into IT, I thought the last thing I would be doing would be this. My father was a CPA, so you can see why I was probably, I thought at the time this would be the last thing I would be doing. And it's really quite interesting though. So with IT service costing, we're attempting to calculate the full cost of each IT service, including direct costs related to delivering a service, such as licenses, subscriptions, or hardware, indirect costs that enable IT to exist, such as general development tools, office equipment for IT staff, or professional development, amortized costs, which are either direct or indirect costs that provide value over several years, the big one, labor cost, but including not only salaries and benefits, but also accounting for time that doesn't directly contribute to services, such as vacation, disability, staff meetings, etc. The full cost of an IT service also includes the costs of other IT services it and its IT service delivery team depend on. Ultimately, client-facing IT services and their costs are allocated to the customers who consume them. So why IT service costing? First, a little bit about IT in the University of Maine system. System is 7 campuses and a law school. About 8 years ago, as part of cost savings, we restructured several university service areas such as HR, facilities, procurement, finance, and IT into system-wide teams. For IT, we now have 1 CIO with 7 campus-based IT support teams, 1 help desk, and 6 service delivery teams such as custom enterprise applications, network main, and classroom technology. We work with and support anyone from anywhere in the system, no matter where we in IT happen to be located. Also interesting is IT has no direct funding from the university's state contribution. Our operations are charged back annually to campuses based on their size. This puts the focus on the cost of IT, not the cost of IT services. Hence is a bit of a black hole in that money goes in, but information doesn't come back out about exactly how campuses benefit from their annual IT charge. The black hole results in a lack of trust, confusion about what's included and what isn't, and misunderstanding about the cost of new initiatives, projects, or upgrades. IT itself is not exempt from these issues. Many IT staff and leaders are unaware of just what's included in the annual charge to campuses, or were unaware. IT service costing illuminates and encourages conversations about IT services, how they're paid for, how they're delivered, who consumes them, and ultimately helps IT improve its position as a strategic partner. So how do we arrive at a service's total cost? In this diagram, you'll see, just going to give you a quick overview about how costs flow through. Our model calculates, and this is the foundation, calculates a labor rate and total number of allocable or billable hours for each IT team for the year. The labor rate also includes the team's indirect costs, costs not associated with a specific service, and a portion of overall IT unit indirect costs. For example, the cost of our annual IT summit and the cost of our IT service costing activity. By allocating hours to services, all the labor and indirect costs flow to services. Next are direct costs. These are costs incurred specific to services. They can be one-time, annual, or amortized costs where we want to spread a large expense such as equipment over its useful life. Lastly, any IT service may depend on or consume other IT services. For example, the model allows us to spread the cost of infrastructure, such as a data center, across all the services that rely on it. It also allows us to build intermediary services, such as a managed server service, that one, includes all of the infrastructure needed to provide it, and two, can then be allocated to all the IT services that utilize an on-premise server. This diagram expands on the previous to show on the right side how services are allocated to customers or to other IT teams to become part of their labor rate, or other services to become part of those services' total costs. Next, I want to go over the tasks that are actually involved in the activity, the annual activity of doing this. So we have a core team comprised of the activity lead, it's myself at this point, our IT partner from finance, some hardy IT team leads representing participants in the process, and our developer. We also form a cohort of IT team leads and anyone they designate to help them. And to prepare for the process, we need to sync up the costing tool with the changes from our IT service catalog. Our finance partner prepares an extract from general ledger of all IT accounts. And for employee information, we pull a report from our HR system and initially assign employees to IT service teams. Participants then have a series of tasks to perform. The core team provides direct one-on-one and group support, as well as instructional videos and documentations. Participants need to confirm their IT services, confirm their employees and split them between any teams as necessary, identify new amortized items from multi-year assets. They then need to allocate their total number of billable labor hours to services. They allocate any direct spend from GL to services, amortized items, or as an indirect team cost that then flows back into their labor rate. Then they allocate their services to customers, other IT services, or other IT teams, or a combination for each service. Each team then reviews and accepts the allocations from other IT teams, and that's it. Voila. What do we get? We get a listing of IT services with their category, total cost, and each customer's share. In our case, each customer is a campus, but it could just as easily be a breakdown of departments within a campus. We also have the ability in the model to do both, to have a major customer and then break that out into smaller customer groups. We also get a category totals. We see the total cost of services rolled up by each service category, such as business applications or educational tools. Also get a report of all the services and their costs consumed by each customer. And notice on this one, I don't know if you can see it up, it's like the 6th row down, that any external to IT funding for the service is shown. So we're allocating all of our costs, but we're also including funding sources from outside of IT to try to give our customers a picture of the full cost of an IT service. Each service also gets its own service summary detail report showing its total cost, cost breakdown, including summaries and details of the labor from contributing IT teams, direct costs, that would be like spend out of GL or amortized items, and the costs of other services that contribute to this service. On the same report, all of the services customers with their relative shares of costs are displayed. One really cool feature of the tool is that, and this was one of our core deliverables for the tool, was a service cost modeler. So using these calculated labor and service rates that we develop once a year, we can use this to estimate the full cost of any proposed projects, upgrades, changes, or new services. In this tool, the green shaded areas are for input. The user can indicate expected hours needed from any IT teams, known or estimated direct costs, as well as any contributing IT services, such as infrastructure. The modeler then projects the total activity cost. Our CIO shares summaries of the IT service costing results with campus and system leadership. And while we provide totals for each service, we don't go into the details, we focus on the total cost. So what are the impacts been? Well, we believe that it's really increased transparency of the IT organization and its services and trust from our customers. We can now show customers what their annual IT bill represents. The modeler also allows us to educate customers about what new services and projects really cost, why the sticker price from vendors doesn't represent full cost in detail. Service costing has had significant impact on IT service owners, leadership, and teams. It shows how interdependent we are on each other's services, promotes a general sense of teamwork and accountability. It's also been useful in IT planning and budgeting processes and presents opportunities for conversations, such as, is X service really worth its cost? Where are we duplicating services? And it illuminates hidden service component costs. For example, by applying some of our help desk service costs to our user account management service based on ticket data, we can show the potential benefit of investing in self-service account recovery, which would be expressed by lowering demand on the help desk. There have been some challenges. It takes considerable effort, although we're working on ways to reduce that. Considerable effort on the part of our IT service area leads. Another challenge is that only one of our teams tracks team labor on services throughout the year. Others are either estimating their labor allocations or using indirect sources such as ticket data. Hence, the accuracy of cost calculations vary. Services themselves may differ by campus due to historical or other factors. For example, a desktop computer service doesn't necessarily reflect the same service level at every campus. And another challenge is finding all the IT spend. We want to give campuses, like I said, a complete picture of the cost of an IT service and IT, so we include non-IT funding where we can count it. Unfortunately, we can't count it all easily, such as IT-related spending that's coming out from campus individual department budgets. With recent budget challenges, that's actually been reduced, and we do tend to, we're seeing, we've got more intelligence about what that spending is, but there's still pockets that we miss. Another challenge is, when do you do this? Currently, we're using the model to analyze the previous fiscal year in late summer. Due to our budget cycle, this means we have to rely on the previous year's analysis to inform budgeting. We originally ran the model looking forward in a budget mode, found that it was very difficult for participants, so we switched to looking back at actuals. Lastly, by collecting such detailed information, there's a risk of campuses trying to micromanage IT, for example, for short-term cost savings. So that is a challenge for our leadership to manage. What about the future? So currently we're gearing up for our third annual run, analyzing the fiscal year that will end on June 30th, 2021. And again, we're looking for ways to reduce the workload for participants and shorten the duration of the activity. Really important, and one reason we're really happy to be invited to give this talk is that we're hoping that to start a conversation about IT service costing in higher ed, either through the EDUCAUSE ITSM community group or another venue. We're really interested in the possibility of participating in a cohort of institutions that are using and improving IT service costing. So thank you very much for listening to our story, and we'd like to take this time to entertain questions and any thoughts you might have about starting a wider conversation about IT service costing, either here or through the ITSM community group.
Hey, Michael.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, it looked like there were two questions that came in the Q&A. So Michael and John, thank you very much. Dana Miller asks, does this type of costing model have a benefit for centrally funded IT organizations?
So I don't see why it wouldn't, because it gives you intelligence on what the actual cost of your services are without, let's say, getting into a per the drink billing model, which we had talked about but didn't. It's interesting. I said we don't have any state allocation and we bill out to the campuses once a year, but from that point on, we are acting like a centrally funded organization. When we were a centrally funded organization with an allocation from the state, we were seen, or parts of us were, we actually had campus IT and central IT the central IT was always seen as competing with the campuses for resources. And so I think this kind of a model would be very useful in that case. John, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think the only thing I'd add is that regardless of your funding source, this helps answer the kinds of questions like, how much does it cost to deliver our learning management system? And with the service cost modeler, it helps to answer questions such as, if we changed learning management systems, what might that cost look like, and would it save us any money? And how much is it going to cost for us to do the conversion? So there are still some considerable benefits, I think, regardless of your funding model.
Thank you. Also,
Excellent.
to the question about, I'm sorry, about technology business management that's in the chat. Yes, there are some similarities. I think, if I remember correctly, and it's been a while since I looked at that, that was also associated with another vendor, that manufacturer that provides a service costing tool. So we probably looked at that, and that helped inform some of the things that we decided to do. But we also are bringing in, for example, from our partner from our finance organization, a deeper cost accounting background that helped build our model. The main drivers for moving to the campus-based model really was, there were two drivers. One was cost savings to not necessarily centralize, but put together all the different IT service organizations in the system. And this was, I think, maybe 8 years ago, when we were really facing some a big cliff, a demographic cliff that we saw was going to really affect the whole system within 10 years, that result in like 25% reduction in available resources for the system. So that was the drive behind the cost savings. But like I said, and we were able to realize, we had a goal and realized significant savings through the formation of the University Services System-Wide IT Group. The primary driver for the annual charge back to the campuses was to take what we call the system office out of competition with the campuses for resources, and to move to a service-based delivery model of, here's what things cost. We're charging you for what things cost. However, the way we started off doing it, like I said, is we're charging you for what IT costs, not what IT services cost. Great question.
So we have
we have another question, which is, how long does it take to do this? And this third year, we won't be making any changes to the tool, so that's hard to know from the past exactly how long this would take, because it was part of our development process. So we were it was a just-in-time approach. But we're predicting about 2 months, and that's 2 months duration, not 2 months work. So our fiscal year closes at the end of June. It'll be finalized in late July, which is when we'll start. We get the sign off from finance, and then we expect to be done by the end of September, and maybe a little bit longer, where there'll be a delay because of the start of school, and it'll end up into October, which then our budget cycle kicks off in November. So if we can get it done in time, then we can actually inform the budget cycle. But that budget cycle, I think, is actually for the budget that starts a year in advance ahead of that, or a year and a half. So it's about 2 months duration. We out of time? No, we got 1 minute. One of the things that we're looking at doing we are going to be doing this year, is we're going to be bringing forward the services that service area leads selected to post costs against, without the actual numbers in terms of hours. So we don't want to make it too easy where they don't think about it, but we want to reduce the effort that they're faced with. We're also moving to a model where they're going to be able to go through it at their own pace individually, and the core team will support them at their own pace to try to reduce the impact on individual participants.
Well, thank you very much. I think we're out of time. Thanks, Michael and John and Scott for helping with moderation. This has been a tremendously interesting session for me.